Catalog and Cocktails, your honest, no BS, non-salesy conversation about enterprise data management with tasty beverages in hand. I'm Tim Gasper, joined by Juan Cicada. Hey, Juan.
Tim, we are back and we are supposed to be live right now. Let's see. Well, if people are live, they can hear us. If you can break something on the
Check
chat.
and see if it's hitting all the
Too.
platforms.
But yes, it is season 11 and year 5.5, 6. I don't know, lost count. Can't believe we're still doing this. And I do believe it because I don't think we're ever going to. Are we ever going to stop? When are we going to stop? I don't know.
I don't know. When is too much? Is 10 years too much? Would 10 years be too much?
All right. Is that now a thing here? We gotta see how we keep the 10 years.
We've been going for, it's not quite 6 years, right?
No, I don't think so. It started May 2020. So
yeah,
we will hit our 6 years. Usually we hit our anniversary is during Gartner in London.
Well,
so.
A lot of people ask, they I say like, oh, we've done, we're going on to our 11th season now. And they say like, oh my God, have you guys been podcasting for 11 years? And I'm like, no. We do kind of 2 seasons. There's like, we take a break in the summer, we take a break in the winter. And so each one is kind of a season. But
all right. Well, we are live on LinkedIn. And I think we're live also on Twitter X. And let's see if this
excellent.
Well,
anyways, excited to kick off this new season with you, Juan.
Yes, a lot. I posted last week or earlier this week about the guests that we already have. We've already started pre-recording. We're trying to have some live ones. And last season, we had a shorter season because we had to it took us a while to get things started, right? With the switch to ServiceNow and putting all the stuff over there and moving podcasts and all that type of stuff. We didn't have things on Apple Podcasts, but it's finally back. It's now working on Apple Podcasts, so glad people can follow that. And we'll be getting all these things pushed on YouTube. You can find it all on the new ServiceNow community channel with YouTube. But yeah, anyways, we just wanted to kick off this season of like what happened in 2025 and what are we looking at 2026. I mean, everybody's doing these things, right? I'm not sure if we want to go do predictions and stuff. Let's just rant. What's on our mind? Everybody does predictions and yada yada.
Well, before we rant, the most important thing: what are you drinking?
All right, so I have a weird one. So I have Smirnoff vodka makes a tamarind flavor, which is something you get in Mexico, and then I try to make like a margarita. So I have orange liqueur in here, and actually I had a little bit of orange juice and some lime. Yeah, it's good. I think I realized I could have made it spicier, which I didn't have the time to put in and make it more salt and stuff.
What would you add to make it spicy?
Just
jalapeno juice or something, or
tahini. So
tahini. Okay, yeah.
That probably good add to it. So, but that's what I'm having right now. How about you?
That's pretty good. I have a Añejo tequila old fashioned. So I was mentioning to Juan earlier today that my new cocktail that I'm trying out is old fashions, but with other things, right? So mezcal old fashioned. This is a tequila old fashioned.
All right. Well, I'm having a margarita without a tequila, and you're having an old fashioned with the tequila. All right. Cheers. So I guess
it's remix. It's the year of remixing things, huh?
There we go. Well, cheers to 2025, 2026. Everybody has been listening to us. Yeah, you all are awesome.
Yeah, and, cheers to this community. How
cool.
cool.
I see Pat also is like, yeah, rants are better than predictions for sure. So we're gonna do that. And Dan, let's meet up live and we'll go. You know, we should do one day, like we should really have a podcast episode where we're the bartenders and we just chat with, when people go to the bars and they're like chatting with the bartenders and they're all depressed. So like that'd be cool to do.
That it would be actually so much fun. We should call it Catalog and Cocktails Open Bar.
I like this. I like where this is going. All right. All right, let's rant. Where's your head at? Where was 2025?
All right. Well, why don't we start with 2025, right? So what did we accomplish in 2025? I feel like one thing is AI went through an important cycle. I think at the beginning of 2025, we were very much we're doing lots of POCs around AI, and some of them are failing, some of them are not. And even though a lot of people disagree with some of the statistical and the meaning aspects behind it, right? Everybody talks about the MIT study with the 95% of projects are failing, right? But I think we've gotten some of the POC phase out, and we kind of are starting to learn what's working and what's not working, and things are going to production. There's production usage of Gen AI powered things going on right now. So I think that was a pretty big thing that happened in 2025. We had an important growth experience around AI.
Yeah, and I think it's clearly people are seeing it. If I go back and we look at like the data world of like, data and all the things you can do to data, and it took many years to get from like, hey, show me the value, show me the money on data. For the AI people, I think people really learned the lesson from data. Like, wait, we're going to go through this hype and we're going to start showing value as fast as possible. And I think it was really clear that we're like, why isn't this delivering value? I do believe that what has happened is like a lot of the low hanging fruit stuff is happening, right? But then the magic stuff that you see happening through like what people expect. I want to be able to go chat with my data to go figure out all these great insights and like that stuff is not happening yet. And it's not happening because, this is my soapbox. You need to be able to have all the different, the meaning, the shared meaning, the semantics, the metadata. And that leads us to the foundation. People are not realizing getting the foundation. So as you can imagine, that's my point here. Like the other thing is I'm super happily surprised I am surprised, I would say, that the word ontology is actually now somewhat popular and people, it's cool. And
especially towards the end of 2025, ontology, it's getting very buzzy.
It is getting very, very buzzy. And I think there's like two parts of that. The first one is the semantics around, I think, the whole BI semantic layers. But I think people very quickly realized that the semantics for BI, just like your facts and dimension tables, is not going to be enough at all for the rest of the stuff that we're kind of expecting to be able to accomplish with agents and all that stuff. And then you realize this is where on knowledge graphs, you have to have ontologies for this stuff that comes in, right? So I think people are now realizing that stuff, and this is great. I mean, I will say that we're now going to see. Oh, this is 2025, right? Well, I'll hold my thought for 2026, but suddenly everybody's a fucking expert around this shit. They had no idea. Being honest,
AI can help you write a really good post on ontologies.
Very, very true. But anyway, so I think that's another one that we're seeing. And I was actually really, it's really cool to go see this stuff now. The stuff that I've been working on for 2 decades, and it's now people paying attention to it. So that's
just really cool. While we're on this topic, do you feel like people are recognizing the history behind the term?
So the honest no BS is that's how I figure out. That's how I realize the posers versus the people who are authentic, who are treating this. Who are not going through the hype, that they really think about this because they're actually doing the research. For example, I was reading some. We'll talk about this later on. I think the whole context graph stuff. But I was looking this up, and I found something called the Context Graph Manifesto, and I'm like, okay, what is this? And then I'm like, some startup doing graphs and whatever. And then I'm like, oh wow, they're actually have dissected the knowledge graph technologies, and they're doing things in RDF and on there, and they explain it, they're creating tutorials around that stuff. And I'm like, okay, these are a group of people who are, I personally have no idea. I'm not connected. I don't even remember what the company is, but like, this is great. Like, people I have no idea about, and they've actually been doing their homework very well. Mm-hmm. And so I'm seeing that. And then there's a lot of like just people just posing because that's the next cool thing to go do. So well, which is normal. We just see this happen, right?
Yeah. And that's going to happen, right? There's going to be a diaspora, and there's going to be the people who recognize the history, and there's going to be, well, now we're starting to talk about the future, right? But there's going to be somebody who says, hey, I can create an ontology in YAML, right? And things like that. So it's going to be across the board, right?
It is going to be across the board, but all right. What else? What else happened in 2025?
2025. We were seeing a lot of data tool convergence and consolidation. So that was a big theme in 2025, right? You saw that in the streaming space. You saw that in the database space. You saw that in the catalog and the metadata space, Data.World, ServiceNow included. You saw that in some of the AI and analytics spaces as well, where smaller companies getting pulled into larger companies. OpenAI made a bunch of acquisitions, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of consolidation going on. I always think about, Juan, you always talked about there's really only four things in the data space, right? There's you gotta get data somewhere, move it,
Move
transform
it.
it, right? That's kind of moving data. You got to store and compute the data. So this is kind of the warehouses, the lakes, etc. There's analytics on the data, and then there's kind of other metadata kind of
The metadata.
oriented, right?
Yeah.
The metadata layer, right? And if you've got 20 different metadata tools and 50 different analytics tools and 10 different integration tools, it's too many. So the pendulum is swinging. 2025 was a time of consolidation. I suspect that 2026 will also see some consolidation, but the pendulum's always swinging.
And I think what I've kind of acknowledged around this is that we were seeing two different types of approaches for consolidation, which is going to lead me to like another kind of convergence that I'm seeing is that there's been more of the bottoms up type of acquisition. So you look at the infrastructure players, like the database players, right? The Snowflake and Databricks, like they've been making acquisitions and stuff, um, and I mean, heck, they even acquired transactional databases, right? And then you start seeing companies who are at more closer to where the business runs, right? And this is where ServiceNow is. This is where other vendors are, right? They're on top, and they're also making acquisitions. And these are people who sell directly to different business lines. Well, we're seeing people kind of, and then the bottom who sell more to the technical side, right? Directly to the CDOs and stuff. So we're seeing those type of acquisitions, and I think they're all both trying to kind of get to each other. So I think that's kind of the pattern that we saw last year. And I think you can easily kind of see which companies were acquiring what and kind of put them inside of that framework. And it just shows you kind of like this is all converging. This is becoming platforms. So I think that's one of the big things that we're seeing last year.
Yeah. What else? What else are you thinking? 2025.
So a little bit kind of going people connecting the dots back to the other point of like we want people start using data for AI and generative AI and stuff. One of the things that they're realizing is trust, right? And I think this is where kind of people are now realizing we need to focus on the foundations. And I think in a way, trust and, as I said, data governance kind of has always been like that. The naysayers, when I always talk about the brakes in the car to slow you down, I think they need people realizing we need to have this type of foundation to generate this trust, because otherwise we're going to be using this for the low-hanging fruit, but then it's not really going to be so transformational to help us for like the big things we want to go do. I think we still haven't figured that part out completely, and I think because we need to change, I think, our way how we do our current workflows, our work business processes, because if we're so focused on if we're to accomplish this particular task or make a decision, we have to go through all these steps. I feel uncomfortable if my steps are being changed, or if that step that I used to control, I'm not part of anymore. And I think this is kind of the human part of behavior, is the controlling. And if I can't control, then I can't trust. So how are we going to do that? And I think either one approach is that we're going to find ways how to take the current process that we're doing things, and this part, I'm going to replace it with this AI thing and find ways to generate trust. That could be one. Or we're going to just completely revamp the process that we do, come up with a new one. I think it's over time, it's going to be that. I mean, it's a typical, what's it called? The J curve paradigm, J curve of innovation. So when innovation comes in, like productivity actually goes down first, and then it goes up because it takes a while for people to realize what is the cost of change and so forth, right? I mean,
yeah, the J curve of change.
I think the example always bringing up is like you had factories and they're all running on steam engines, right? And then electricity comes in and people are like, oh, I just put electricity in my same building, and like that wasn't as efficient. But whoever realized, no, you know what? I'm going to start from scratch and build a new building and thinking electricity first. It took a while to get there. It took an investment, and then they have that productivity. So I think that's what we're going to go through with this.
Interesting. It connects to that saying, you got to slow down to speed up.
Yeah, exactly. This is like that book right now. And it comment, and also like systems thinking right now is super super important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And these trust issues, I think, have they've exposed the fact that a lot of metadata management, cataloging, governance, kind of stuff that was happening in the metadata layer, that we've underinvested there, and that we've been treating it a little bit more like a vitamin than a painkiller. And now it's moving into painkiller territory, which is changing things.
Yes, and I think we got a link here from Paco, so you can look at the J curve that he shared right there.
Oh, that's perfect. Um,
What else? What else?
I think one thing that was a theme across a lot of our episodes was this idea of like data teams should stop being so reactive. Like we're ticket takers, we're service functions, right? I think that model is officially breaking for real. And in 2025 became a very strong realization that this sort of data team as a service, as an internal kind of service, doesn't scale to the future demands of what's going on with the organization. And that just simply like making all your data self-service or something like that doesn't just magically create value for the organization. So 2025, lots of themes around what is the ROI of the data team? What is the value of the data team? Things like data product management and data products, I think, revolve a lot around the surface area of what we do as data teams, and focusing on value and impact of data, and the analytics that we're producing. So I think this data team as the service desk kind of model is officially broken, and there's a recognition of it as we get to the end of 2025.
Yeah, I think the we actually, just the honest no BS here. We recorded a podcast earlier today with Juan Goricho, which will be coming out soon, and we talked about this a lot about how teams are really the ticket takers, right? They're the ones who just like I just generate these reports. I bring my data, I create my data warehouse, and like I don't even know how this data. I don't even know how this report or dashboard is being used, or even if it's being used, right? And I think this goes back into that other point of trust. It's like I only the data teams are only generating these reports and not doing more because frankly the rest of the organization doesn't trust them to go do more. Um, but I think that's the angle that needs to change. And I think that we gave a talk at Big Data London on this because I think we genuinely believe that this is the opportunity for data teams to really own this AI revolution. Because at the end of the day, if you look at all these systems, you look at all the processes and the people, like data flows through everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so the data teams have the opportunity to really own and run this. And there's this new thing that we need to go think and manage. And it's not just the agents people are building, it's what's going to fuel them is not just the data, it's the semantics, the context, the knowledge, right? The semantics, all this. So that's like who is going to manage that? And I think that's what people are realizing. That's the next thing to go do. And I think this is kind of a good segue of what we think is going to happen in 2026. But
Yeah.
I think people are now realizing, shoot, I got the opportunity to take ownership around this. But the only way to take ownership is getting out of my bubble of just doing analytics and actually realizing like the whole notion of faster time to insights. That's freaking bullshit. That's not the goal. That's a vanity metric. It's about how do you take action? How you're driving new decisions and goes back to like how is this making money, saving money.
Yeah. Yep. And the people skills aspect of the data team is becoming more and more important as we go forward. Um, By the way, you mentioned our Big Data London talk. I think the link to it is now available. It's on YouTube now, I think, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah. So we could actually include a link to that in the podcast notes. So if folks haven't seen it, they can check it out. By the way, great event. You should check out Big Data London. It's a
so cheers
great event.
to Mike Ferguson, also a former podcast guest from a long time ago, and it's always a fantastic event.
Mm-hmm. Anything else?
So,
anything else we should call out from 2025? What are we forgetting?
I don't know. Let's go. What's next? Let's not
talk about the future.
Talk about the future.
Future.
What's on our mind? What are we already seeing on the first 7 days of this year?
Juan, why don't you start? What's your first?
Well,
how do you blend together the word forecast and rant? Is it like a rant cast?
Well, all right. So I think we're going to start. Ontology is going to be the big thing. It's already starting to be the big thing, and because effectively we just need to manage knowledge, and this is going to be, we need to start treating our enterprise data models, right? Our domain models, or our schemas, like all of that is knowledge that we need to start managing. We need to manage our control vocabularies, the terms that we use. So I think so shout out to like Jessica talks about the ontology pipeline. Like this is the spectrum of semantics, and this is like the stuff that people do with data catalogs traditionally. Like you start creating a business glossary. Like this is the stuff that we're actually going to do more with like true ownership. Like, oh, people are really going to jump on saying, I really want to take ownership around this and accountability around it. Not just, I'm just going to generate a bunch of terms because that's a pretty thing to go do in a catalog. Like people realize that's exactly what I need to do, because I need to be able to, these agents will need to understand this, and I need to be able to say, look, this is this definition per this domain and this other domain. So if somebody's looking for a customer, the agent will know, well, you want the customer of the marketing or the customer of the finance, and here's what they mean, all that stuff. And it all starts out with just a basic business glossary and things like that. So I think that people are going to, we have been doing all that work. And I think the data stewards and people coming doing taxonomy and stuff, like they're going to very quickly rise right now to be kind of the kind of the go-tos. Now, I also expect, or I'm already seeing this, people's like, wow, I don't need to do that. ChatGPT, LLMs will generate that stuff. And that is true. And it will generate a first version of that stuff. But I was texting with another colleague yesterday, and he's like, we're saying, like, my position always is, if humans don't even agree, why the heck do we think that this machine is going to come up with the right thing? Now, one reason why you may say that is, I'm just going to flip the table. I'm out of here. I don't care. And let the machine overlords just run this stuff, and I'm going to trust them. Yeah, but whenever there's money involved, like that's not really going to happen. So I think people realize you're going to just generate more and more noise around that stuff. So I think that's why the ontologies are going to come in. And I think we're going back to my other point of like separating who's doing the blah, 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 and who's actually doing very thoughtful, is who is just jumping in with technology first and doing things versus people really learning kind of the fundamentals, like knowledge representation. Ontology engineering has been very, very well studied. There's techniques, there's tools out that stuff, and people learn about RDF and OWL and SCAS and that stuff. And yeah, the tooling may not be the best, but it's an opportunity. Go work on stuff. Go vibe code your next ontology editor. Do that stuff. Already see people doing that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So 2 challenges that I think we're going to need to overcome in 2026 around this. One is, well, actually 3 challenges. One is automation. Like to your point, like I think people will be very hungry for solutions that are going to help to automate, right? Because the other 2 challenges feed into this. The second challenge is we're already bad at data modeling, right? Shout out to Joe Reese and the book that he's coming out with around on modeling, like and to the forefathers of modeling. Inman, Kimball, right? We kind of lost the art of good data modeling. We have to come back to that. But then on top of that, we're not good at data modeling today. How are we going to get good at ontology modeling, right? So I think that's an interesting challenge, is that we as data organizations are going to need to become modelers again.
So and let me go call to action.
Yeah, feel free to jump in on that. Yeah.
Call to action for the senior folks who are still there and and when they're about to retire, it's like, this is the moment that we need you to go and share your knowledge and go take the younger generation saying, once upon a time, this is how we used to do things.
Back
Like,
in
no,
my
this is
day, we did third normal form, right?
exactly. I mean, this is there's a reason for these
More
things.
relevant than ever.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. And then I'll say the third challenge, which connects back to the other two, is data teams are so disconnected from knowledge management and from unstructured data management, like document management. And I think that in 2026, to really get good at enterprise ontology modeling and knowledge management, data teams are going to have to break that wall and be like, I guess I do care about what's floating around in SharePoint and what, is in Google Drive and OneDrive. And, I guess I do care about our, company wiki that I just kind of have been
But I
ignoring,
want to be I want to be careful with this, because then you can
Yeah.
very easily start boiling the ocean and then like, well, let's go catalog everything in my SharePoint. I'm like, no. Then it goes back to like, what's the freaking problem you're trying to go solve?
Yeah.
What is the business problem? Not the
Well, it has to
technical
be use case oriented, right?
problem. It's like
But these are challenges. I just think
no, it's
that
true.
we're going to run into these, and in 2026 will be interesting as we try to navigate all this.
Yeah. So
Anything
ontologies.
else you want to say on ontologies, Juan?
I've ranted enough about that stuff. I mean, I got a lot more to say, but I'll just shut up for now.
I feel like this is an episode of Seinfeld right now.
Wait, shout out. We will actually have a full episode on ontologies. I'm just like just again raw, honest, no BS. Like I get tired when I get to see the new latest episode on ontologies. So I reached out to my original, like my mentor, who is the person who is responsible for me to actually have a scientific career, which is Professor Oscar Corcho, the guy who introduced me to ontologies like 20 years ago. He has original book on ontology in here. I'm like, let's just have this conversation. Let's talk about the history on this stuff. So that episode is coming soon. So anyways, enough topic on ontology and stuff. Let's go to what's next. What else are you saying?
All right. So next thing, we saw a little bit at the end of 2025, some controversial articles and things like that about AI is going to disrupt the system of record, right? And I'll say I think that's interesting. I think that's a very disruptive and interesting thought, and there's certainly going to be a lot of really interesting use cases, explorations, and things that are going to happen that revolve around this idea of like, hey, what if we disrupt the system of record? But I think whether that happens or not, and regardless of how fast that happens or not, what we see happening is the world of analytics and the world of operations are really crashing into each other because AI demands that we have a really tight feedback loop between what's happening in the business and how we're trying to implement these things and the data and the trust and the context that feeds them. And so this sort of insight to action tight loop is going to force us to continue to move away from, we talked about 2025 is we're moving away from data as the service desk, right? We're going to continue to move away from that and move towards a really embedded and tightly integrated model where we're working very closely with the business. And, the platforms and the approaches that are connecting, system records to insights to action and keeping that very tight are going to win.
Yeah. So, and this is, I think, something we should call out, right? For those who've been underneath the rock or whatever, like Tim and I work for Data.World, which was acquired by ServiceNow. It's like 6 months ago. I can't believe it's already been 6 months.
I know.
And this is truly, I know for me it has, and I know I probably can speak for you, is like it has really truly opened us up like to so many different worlds. Like we burst our data analytics bubble. And shout out to a lot of the folks internally that have learned so much already. I call this the convergence of the systems you were talking about. The systems of record, the systems that manage your applications, manage your CRM, your ERP, right? Your ITSM and all that stuff, right? Systems of record. Then you have your systems of analytics, This is where your data warehouses, data lakes, and your LE analytics happens. And then this is where you have your systems of action, where you have your orchestrations, your workflows, right? I think Gartner calls this also BOAT, so business orchestration automation technologies. These three things, these three areas, these three systems are converging. And you could like we're not going to name let's not go into like vendors or anything, but you can put vendors in each one, and you're realizing that each vendor is making acquisitions to go do things in the other side, and
they live here, but they're trying to go this way, right?
Exactly. They're all they're all trying to go do, and at the end of the day, they're like, this used to be my territory, and then this was the other territory of analytics. All of this stuff is now being converged because, frankly, you think is like companies, organizations, yeah, they work with multiple vendors, but then, and this goes back to like, I don't want to work with more of these little tiny vendors and start like, have you seen this consolidation? So the pendulum is swinging, but at the end, I think what's going to happen is like, you're going to have all these platforms, and I do believe that organizations will want to say, look, who's the trusted platform I want to do this? Like why should I be spending more of my time and energy in one platform than the other? I think we'll always have them. We'll have all three of them, right? I don't think that we're going to have one gigantic monolith who's going to do everything. I think that we're going to have one where there's more center of gravity around that. And I think the way that this convergence actually happens successfully is, well, AI is going to be one of those accelerators for that, because we'll have all the agents and just to do planning but then that is going to need all that semantic interoperability. Like, we are fantastic at moving data around, but understanding that this piece of data that is in this system of record is the same piece of data as in this analytics, is the same piece of data that's being happened through these actions. Like, that is where semantics interoperability comes in. And again, and this is not just like, this is where ontologies come into what we mean. This is about modeling processes, about having identity management, about what is this thing? How do I know that Tim in this system is the same Tim as that other system, and the same Tim that went through this whole workflow somewhere else? Like that's the stuff. And I think we're going to start seeing companies and startups who are going to start with that convergence in place. So even I think companies who are small and are growing right now, they actually have the opportunity to say, I can live without all that legacy debt and kind of just probably start with that one platform. So anyways, I think this is going to be the start of something really interesting, a big change in our industry. Yeah. But I do believe that it will work if we invest in the semantics and the interoperability. Otherwise, couple years later, we're going to go through like, this AI stuff is great for personal use, but for the enterprise, we're still writing point-to-point connections, a bunch of spaghetti code to go do things like, I foresee it. Sadly, I foresee that could happen.
Well, and you mentioned the legacy stuff. Even if you have a lot of the legacy stuff, right, because of AI now, you're able to, like, we're talking to a lot of CDOs, CDAOs and folks, right? They're starting to actually do more legacy migrations and stuff like that now, because of the fact that they can use AI to write the code and help to accelerate the migration process and things like that. So it's interesting to see that. But to your point about semantics, right? Like, as the ability to build more data models, build more data products, build more pipelines, like, just accelerates. You could build thousands of dashboards automatically with the click of your finger, right? Or with an utterance of your voice. What's going to ground it? And organizations that invest properly in semantics are going to be able to unleash this circle of records, analytics, and actions more easily. All right. Next, Juan, I'll pass it to you. What's your next rant that you want to do?
Well, let me rant on this term context for a bit. And so we saw end of December, this VC firm, Foundation Capital, put out this thing about context graph, which I am still acknowledge that I'm still scratching my head and digesting it. So I do not. So take what I'm about to say with a gigantic grain of salt. I acknowledge that this is me providing an opinion where I should get more detail, but there's not enough hours in a day to go do everything I want to go do. So But what I'm observing is, first of all, I think shouldn't be called context graph. It should be called decision graph, because I do think that what they're arguing is that that context that you need is really, you need to have the decision trails. Okay, if what I say is, if I know that my ontology defines customers, orders, products, invoices, shipping, all that stuff. Okay, that's it. And I know how things are related. An order places a customer, right? And then the order has products, and their shipment. I can define the relationship between this. But then then there's these actions that occur. Like, when does a shipment happen? When does an invoice get shipped? When does the invoice get generated, right? And all that stuff. And there's kind of rules around these things. And there's a discount, and what is the discount going to go do, and so forth. So a lot of those actions, where do they live? Where do they exist? Are they automated? Are they in people's heads that somebody goes in every time and clicks manually? Or I don't know. I think that's the part that we need to make explicit, right? And then, so there is kind of like the process of how things should happen, and then there's the actual process of what actually did happen. And I think this is the interesting thing, because that's the stuff that we want to figure out how to go automate. But we want agents to go automate this stuff and do it for us. But if we don't even know what those processes are and how they've been done before, like, that's what needs to happen. So I think that I definitely understand it's needed. And they call it context graph. I think this should really be called decision graph. I think, but okay. Now what's interesting is, just fascinating to go see. I look at all the LinkedIn's, all the comments. It's a bunch of startups saying, "Oh, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing." So,
Well, that always happens when a VC does like a big, this is the future, and everybody's like, "Oh, well, I'm the future."
I've been doing it for 2 years. I've been doing it for 3 years. Like, it's kind of. But look, I mean, I'm not saying this in a negative way. Like, I've been that person too, right? So, like, yeah, and I applaud this, but I think this is where you need to be able to kind of calm down and figure out where the hype is. Now, what I believe is that the term context will get thrown out so much that there's just going to be so much blah 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 BS around this stuff, and everybody's going to be down around, oh yeah, we need context. I mean, of course we need context around that stuff. That's an obvious thing. That's a platitude. That's an ordinary truth. But I think we're going to start seeing how people how they implement this. But the big thing for me is that everything I just described, like, how do I give a discount? And how do I know that the invoice was the shipment actually had the invoice? Well, that's not a technology problem always. That's a lot of a people and process problem. So my big kind of red flag is, definitely it's a huge problem, but you're telling me that technology is going to solve that problem when it's a people problem? Like, not even people know what that process is. How are we going to go do that, right?
Yeah. And then, I mean, AI is surprising, right? I think it's surprised. It's surprising the kinds of thing, like, go 5 years ago, like, you would not have predicted that it would be as good at some of the things that it's good at right now, right? So I'm, and maybe you are too, right? Open to being surprised, right?
Yes.
But there's such a challenge around context that, I mean, we're going to work through it in 2026. ServiceNow is going to do it. Every company is going to try to figure this out, right? All the startups, everyone. But it's a really complicated problem, because they're, and this is why you have meetings all day long with people arguing about stuff, right? Is that there's like how things should work, right? There's how things actually got implemented. Then there's, despite how it got implemented, what was the work that actually got done? And that's, I think, where this article especially focuses, is like, is the decision log of what actually happened. Because despite how you implemented it, people go around the process, right? And they decide to give people bigger discounts than they're supposed to and stuff like that, right? So what actually happened? But then there's like remediation also, which is like, just because it happened that way didn't mean we should do it that way, right? And so you can see there's like 4, and there's probably more than 4. There's 4 different paradigms of not just context, but what is the right context. That is so hard. And hundreds of people argue about it day in, day out at companies, and maybe AI can solve that. But, it's a very hard problem.
And I think I was texting about this with a friend yesterday. I was saying, like, we define the ontology around things, right? The main model. We can define constraints. An order that has been shipped must have an invoice. And then there's a process. How does that invoice get generated? But let's say for some reason I find out that there are shipped orders that don't have an invoice. What does a data person look like? That's a data quality error. Oh, we can't trust the data. Well, yeah, that's true because there should be one, there isn't. So there's an error, right? There's a data quality, but in reality, something happened with that process. And we don't know what happened, right? There's could be multiple processes. It could be some API thing that was down. It could be a manual thing that took. We don't know, and I think that's the stuff that we need to go figure out. So again, that's a lot of the people process problem that I am skeptical that it'll be a technical thing. I do think that this is going to highlight something which it would be just this. If I would want this to be true, and I hopefully as I will work towards is like data engineering meet knowledge engineering, right? I mean, I've been writing, talk about the knowledge engineering, right? I called it the knowledge scientists. You can take a look at knowledgescientist.org. It's something I've been talking about for a long time. I see that like even just today on LinkedIn, I posted like Veronica Heismack. She's wrote this book about shackle constraints and how to use the constraints and knowledge graphs. Like she just gave a really simple tutorial. Like, hey, data engineers, you want to learn how to do a little bit about knowledge engineering, knowledge graphs? Here's a simple example to go do things in Python. Like I think we're going to start seeing more and more of that, and just kind of get the data people to learn more about the knowledge side. And I think that is going to just flourish because I think the combination of those two things. That's another 1 + 1 is greater than 2.
Yeah, I like that. That makes a lot of sense. One last thing maybe I'll say on context is that, I'm really curious to see over the course of 2026 where a lot of the context management needs to happen, right? Like
systems of convergence, where in the convergence,
yep. Right? Like where going back to what we said earlier, like systems of record versus systems of action versus systems of analytics. That's one angle, right, or one lens. Another lens, though, is what should be part of the LLM or the AI model itself, right? I won't say LLM, the AI model, right? What should be part of the AI model versus what should be part of the AI app or agent, right? Where the prompt engineering, for example, right, is a kind of an interaction with the agent, right? Versus what should live in like your semantic layer or your metadata management system, right? I think it's going to be or it stays in a third party system. I mean, you use MCP and things like that. Kind of this balance is going to be very interesting to figure out over the course of 2026.
So I think that we'll see the convergence of the platforms. The platforms will say, no, that metadata, that I'm going to be using the word metadata, context, semantics, right? The knowledge, right? All that kind of interchangeably. Like all of that should live either in one of these platforms. That's where you're going to be living. That's where it lives. People will now argue that we're going to have a new context layer, and what we'll be seeing is the handful of data catalog companies still out there. They're going to revamp themselves and say, no, we're now the context layer for AI and all that stuff. And like, which is basically, we're just continue doing metadata management. So basically say we're doing metadata separately, but that's kind of coming from the data catalog layer, which is for the structure, kind of more from the structure world. Then there's going to be new AI startups saying, oh, we are the brand new AI context layer to go do that stuff. And they're coming in from more of an AI layer, but it's very similar to the data catalog, but it's basically the same thing. I think that all that stuff is going to be happening. I mean, I think every platform is going to want to say like do it with me.
Yeah, you're basically saying context is going to become like everything's going to get context washed.
Well, 100%. Yeah, everybody's going to have semantics. That's 100% already happening. We even started seeing this last year too. Going back, like now there's a lot of these catalogs have a knowledge graph when they didn't have a knowledge graph, and now everybody like we have been talking about knowledge graphs and semantics literally from the beginning of data world. And I'm not here just to go pitch about our product. It's like we genuinely believe that that's been the foundation about how you should go manage this stuff. And other companies are like, and now they see it is, and now they're just labeling on it, right? And so I think that is also a sign of just people jumping on the hype. But
so look past what's painted in front, right?
I think this is a really foundational thing. And I think this is not something that you just want to kind of just do what I've been calling like semantic washing it. Like you really want to be able to go work with a vendor as a partner who actually truly understands the stuff and is critical around it and pushes you around these things, pushes you back and forth intellectually to figure this out. And not just say is like, oh, no, it's not, it's just magic. No, there is work to be done here. So, this has been a good rant. I like this.
Yeah, that was good.
Listen, Paco, if you're still on, are these rants better than predictions? What else do you have on your mind, Tim? Before we wrap
Um,
up?
a couple last thoughts maybe before we wrap up. One is I think governance is getting more and more exciting and also complicated. And so 2026 is going to be a lot of oh, I thought we just had to be, go back 10 years ago. It was like governance is like make sure you don't get sued and make sure like you're passing the regulations, right? But like now governance is like, well, we got to enable people, we got to have literacy, we got to have metadata management, we got to have a self-service, and we got to make sure that AI has context. And by the way, it's not just structured data, it's unstructured data, it's semi-structured data. And it's not just about control, it's about enablement, right? And so like, whoo, governance is so hard now. And there's like, how many people are in the governance office in your company? There's like 2 people who have governance in their title, right? Like, and they're like, I gotta sleep, I got kids, I gotta hang out with my kids, right? Like, governance is complicated, and it's getting more complicated in 2026.
Uh,
That was my little rant.
no, no, no. What's gonna? How are we? How are we gonna get out of that? Is this? We always talk about like, oh, we need to operationalize governance and automate more of this stuff, and right?
Yeah, I mean,
Will we have more like?
yeah,
we should have more agent. I think we will be right. I mean, we're working on this stuff, right? Like how to actually have agents that's going to help you just get through all that grunt work of of governance, right? So, right, more of the human,
yeah.
like do all the grunt work for you, human in the loop to kind of make sure things are approvals
Well,
and stuff.
I think 2 things have to happen. Will happen and have to happen. One is that we should all be investing a little bit more in governance. Like I think that's one thing, right? But then the second thing, which is maybe more interesting, is that governance has to become more embedded, right? Because like if you can't make the argument that you need to hire 20 more governance people, which is a hard argument to make, like let's just be practical here, right? Then that means that you need your data engineers and your data modelers and your data architects and your analytics engineers and your data analysts and your business analysts and your your data stakeholders. And you need to start taking the responsibility of governance, and not just governance, but also things like context and things like that. You need to find a way to make it more participatory and get more people involved, right? It's kind of like the transition between hey, we used to have, QA people, the people who do QA. It's like, I don't know, it really should be part of engineering, right? Like, oh, we had like DevOps people. I'm a DevOps engineer. It's like, isn't like DevOps kind of like part of what an engineer needs to do? So I think there's an embedded aspect that we haven't quite cracked the nut on, that 2026 is going to be a good year for us to figure out how to get more people involved in governance. And maybe you don't call it governance because that's a scary word, but it's context, call it context engineering or something like that. Make people feel excited about it.
I mean, I will say I'll be the one like, oh, we shouldn't call it governance, call it enablement or governance enablement. I mean, I think the word governance is not going to go away. It is what it defines it well what it is. Maybe
Yeah,
just
yeah.
enablement,
But some of these things like developing ontologies, things that it's very governance adjacent, and like it's yeah. Anyways, governance is like often seen as not cool, and like we have to try to break that somehow.
that's true, and I think this is the mindset of I mean, shout out to Mark Kitson, who always breaks in a car, right? Governance is the one who says, what is governance? It's enabling people to do amazing things with their data safely. So that's how they're cool. So, all right, we're almost at the hour. Final one. So if I think one more, one of the biggest things that I took away from 25 by getting my eyes open through ServiceNow has been value for the business is really taking those insights, all that data work that you do, and taking action to that. And I think I do expect and hope now that 2026 is going to be the year that it's very clear how you provide ROI. And if you are struggling with that, then I'm sorry, you're not supposed to have a job. like as a data leader, like that's it. So I think like it's very clear that you have to be able to partner with the business, understand what they need to go do, and figure out their needs, and ask why, get trust, and be able to go be huge partners. Like the data teams can be true. Data teams need to become like the completely mission critical. You're saying every single business line is going to be 10x better because of how data runs for them. And if you were to say, oh, I'm going to unplug, you can't talk to your data people will flip the table saying, what the fuck, I can't work without them. I don't want to go back to my life without them. I think that we're going to start seeing that, because the automations, the workflows, like that is what's going to be connecting the insights, the actions to help business lines. And I think that is now happening with AI, with workflows, and it goes back to this convergence, right? And I think if you look at the convergence, that's why I argue that between systems of record, between systems of analytics, and between systems of action, if I had to choose one of the three, which is the one that's going to provide more value, is that action. Without action, then we're just staying put.
I think what's interesting is, and I 100% agree with you. What's interesting is I look at like kind of what we talked about from a forecast standpoint or a rant standpoint. It wasn't very technology oriented, right? And in some of the past forecasts that we've done, there's been like a more of a technology oriented, like this particular category is going to see streaming is going to go big or something like that, right? But like this is, would it be right to say that like some of the most interesting things that probably happen in 2026 are more around how you're leveraging technology than the actual technology itself?
I think that's what it should always be, but technology is just a tool. I don't see carpenters going around. I mean, carpenters do go around saying, look at this amazing hammer I have, but they're not off selling, look at this thing I'm selling you right now, and it's thanks because of my amazing duper hammer that you should buy this because of this hammer that I use. Like,
I feel like I just walked into my own into a trap that I set for myself, which is, have you ever seen that meme where it's like the astronaut and the astronaut is looking at Earth, and then there's the astronaut behind him with a gun, and so the first astronaut's looking at the Earth and he's saying, it was never really about the technology, was it? It's really about the people and the process and the strategy. And the guy behind him was like, it always was.
Well, talking about 2026 kicking off.
Yeah. Do you want to give a quick preview? It was like some of what can people look forward to as we go into the next season here?
Let's talk about this quickly. We got next week, we are going to have pre-recorded. We'll have Tony Bear and Matt Housley, which we actually just did also recorded of a lot of their rants. So that's going to be a fun one. It's going to happen. So stay tuned to that. And then we're also going to have, I'm looking at my list here. One second. We're going to have, so Juan Goricho, Nachitek Meda, and Victoria Gamerman, who are data executives, CDOs, who have shared all their experiences. We're going to have a deep dive on ontologies with Oscar Corcho, and then we're going to have also Bob Seiner on data governance. We'll have Vaid Gupta going on BAML, like on AI agents, Irina Steenbeek on data lineage, Shahar Mayer on data teams, Tara Rafat on building knowledge graphs. We're going to have Saeed Haveri and both Eva from the Finnish mafia, who are going to be talking about governance and knowledge and people. And so that's what we're going to be having. And that's just a glimpse, because we got more that's coming up. And then, so yeah, that's coming next month. And then also to kick off conference and stuff, we are going to be at Data Day Texas. And I think we just see there, if I don't get it, we have, I think Lynn just posted there a second. Yeah. So Data Day Texas is going to be in a couple of weeks in Austin, Texas. You can register and get a discount with the code HonestNoBS. This is the year to attend. Like, it's going to be freaking amazing. Lynn has put together such an amazing program. Saturday and Sunday. Stick around for Sunday, because
you got to do the 2-day, because Sunday is like a conversation. That's where like the really interesting back and forth is going to happen.
And we're there, and we're going to be all over the place. And I think we're going to try to go do some live episodes. we have them on our calendar, but we know that things are going to always change and stuff. So we'll see. We'll try to get some more live stuff.
Well,
And
and I think
more,
we're gonna
whatever.
try to do some more ad hoc kind of
Yeah.
videos
So
too.
stay tuned. We'll share something next week. We're going to try something interesting next week.
You tell us what you think. We're
All
gonna
right.
2026 is gonna be a year of some experimentation.
Yes, and we're going to go more on YouTube, and we're going to have shorts and reels and all that type of stuff. So stay tuned to all that stuff. Tim, any last words?
No. Any big resolutions for 2026 for you personally?
I still go to the gym. Let's say I still go to the gym. All right, what did ChatGPT say that we should say as a closing beat?
Oh, let me see here. Oh yeah, here we go. Ready? I lost it. We asked ChatGPT to give us like what's a good zinger that we should end on.
It's pretty good.
Where is it? Where is it in our little chat?
Dun 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 dun. All right, I have to send it to you. You got it?
Here we go. I found it. Here he is.
Oh.
All right. Hey Juan. 2026 is the year when vegetables finally become the meal.
And when ontologies are how you agree on what those vegetables actually are. Cheers.
All right, everybody. That's a wrap.
Not a dad joke. I don't know. Cheers.
Cheers, everyone. Have a great Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody.